Oh, yes, another edition of Here Come the Irish. We do this every other week or so where we ask members of the Notre Dame Giving Society to give us their takes on the upcoming week. Vic Lombardi, Ryan Harris, and this is it, my man. We've made it through the season, and the Irish are pulling up. They're jumping up in the rankings. Were you as surprised as I was that they're all the way up to 13?
I was not. I mean, the dominating win. I mean, they completely destroyed Clemson. Who knows if Clemson can actually win another game of meaning? And then the way they got out of the Navy game and then just destroyed Boston College. I mean, the score was not indicative of how bad of a beating they were putting on Boston College. And Vic, at one point, I don't even think they could have thrown the ball because of the snow. It just dropped in. It was insane. So you battled the elements, defeated a team handily, and then, oh, by the way, have put together a win streak with some fantastic wins. And I'll tell you, if they can beat USC, God willing, when they beat USC, well, now you're talking about a top 10 team with an awesome bowl game.
Well, and what a turn for the season. You know, you're losing to Marshall and Stanford, and you're thinking, oh, this is one of the most woeful seasons in history, in recent history, and they turn it around. What sparked the turnaround in your mind?
That second half against Cal, that was big. I mean, that was a tight game, too tight for anybody's liking, but they committed to running the ball. Excuse me. Right before they did, Vic, I said, now's the time you run the ball 12 straight times. And they did it, and it was extremely successful. So that was the turning point. But then preparing and executing the way they did against Clemson, that sealed the deal.
All right, so 35 points, more than 35 points scored again. That's the fifth straight game in which the Irish have done that. First time that's happened since 1943. I think, going on what you just said, when you establish an identity and you embrace that identity, then you become a powerful team. And that's where Notre Dame is right now.
Well, you know what to do when things go wrong. I mean, that's the biggest thing people miss. When you have an identity, you might look and say, oh, we actually passed 2 of the last 5 plays. Let's go back to run the ball. So having an identity gives you something to go back to and to celebrate with your team in the midst of adversity.
Where did this Benjamin Morrison kid come from? I mean, 3 picks in one game after what he did the previous week.
He's got 4 picks, I think, in the last 6 quarters, right, of football. In terms of playing at home, against Clemson, and then coming against Boston College. The thing I love the most, Vic, is teams were targeting him. And that's going to happen. You know, when I played against the Patriots, they did things I'm like, oh, Bill Belichick doesn't think I can pass block. Oh, he's going to find out. And a lot of players, Vic, when they feel that they're being targeted, they shut down, right? They do not improve. They look for excuses. And what I love is that Benjamin Morrison has done the work to be the great player he is. And he's still just a freshman. By the way, he only started, I think it was the 5th game of the year. How many more picks would he have had, right? So, yeah. And not only are the picks, he does other things, Vic. You'll see him on go routes. He'll turn his hips and be side to side with the receiver, and then he'll speed up and get in front of the receiver. You can't get a pass interference call on a go route when you're in front of the receiver. An incredible knack. And then the rest of the defense has been playing well too. Justin Ademilola has been great. Isaiah Foskey sealed the record. Maris Leofau's fantastic. DJ Brown, a lot of things are going well. Cam Hart had a great game as well against Boston College. So all things are trending up for the Irish.
Well, you know, let's take a look back at last week's victory, shutout victory over Boston College. You know, when you're playing some teams and you're blowing them out, sometimes you say to yourself, all right, lay off, let them at ease here. But when it's BC for some reason, Ryan, keep it up.
Pour it on.
Boston College and Notre Dame on Senior Day in South Bend. And give does go to Diggs, and a huge hole is opened up straight up the middle. Diggs with a stiff arm and well into BC territory inside the 25-yard line before DeBerry finally drags him to the ground. Irish bring the heat. And BC trying to pick it up, they do, and now this pass is intercepted. It's Benjamin Morrison. A couple interceptions to his name against Clemson, of course the pick 6. Now he returns home against Boston College, and he steals away another one. Hine hands it off one more time. It's stuffed initially is Logan Diggs, and then fights his way in for the touchdown. Keep Chris Tyree in the game at running back. Fake it to him. Here's Pine, and that pass is caught for the touchdown. It's Matt Select. Kinds of speed for Zay Flowers. 4.4, maybe high 4.3 guy coach thought. More pressure coming, Moorhead back to the air, and this time he's intercepted. Who else? Benjamin Morrison rises for the pick, his second of the game. Now on 2nd and 10, play action. Moorhead tried to escape the pressure. Football is out, and that ball is recovered. Isaiah Foskey there. It's Jack Kaiser with the hit that got the football loose. This is deepest of the day from 46. Can he bend it back? Yes. How about Groupie? On the money once again. Pine hands it off. It's Audric Estime. Had the nice block. Now the nice run. Touchdown, Notre Dame. It's Audric Estime. To the run once again. Chris Tyree. Touchdown, Notre Dame. True freshman cornerbacks for the Irish. And pressure gets there, and it is Isaiah Foskey getting a sack. Justin Tuck's record is in trouble. Here comes Isaiah Foskey. He wants to be Notre Dame's all-time leader in sacks. 2nd and 10. Back to the pass game, trying to set up a screen. Is that intercepted again? It was Benjamin Morrison who was flying up. He read the screen. He says 1, 2, 3. His 3rd interception of this game.
As a leader for this Notre Dame offensive line, they've embraced his leadership and they followed it.
Tight end sneak with a little surprise. Here goes Audric Estime in for the touchdown. How about a snow angel? A snowy senior day.
Well, here's Aiden's favorite part of the show for one last time as a senior. Aiden Thomas joins us from The Observer. Aiden, how you doing, my friend? Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, Ryan. I'm doing well. Excited for the last game of the year. Another chance to beat USC, finish undefeated in my time as a student here.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, were you out in the field, or you were in the press box in the suit without your AirPods? Isn't that right?
I would for this USC game. I will be in the press box, most likely without AirPods. We'll see if I can make that happen before. But if not, we'll be going with the earbuds for that one.
No, I'm saying for the Boston College game. Were you out in the stands with the snowstorm, the snowganza that happened?
I did brave it out in the stands. I wanted to be in the stands for my last game.
Wow.
So about 5 or 6 layers deep, and we were ready to go. And yeah, made it through the whole game. Got into the field after the game with all the other seniors. It was a cold but a really fun last game.
That's really cool. And for those who don't know, on the last home game, they allow the seniors to congregate and go out on the field after. And if you saw any of the videos too, some of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish came back on and were rolling up snowballs and things like that and playing dodgeball. So what a fun time. But let's focus on hand right now. We got USC. We're going to visit them. Give us a 30,000-foot view of this USC defense.
Yeah, the USC defense is not necessarily what they're renowned for, but it's a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde concept with them. They lead the nation in interceptions. They have 18 of them. They forced 6 fumbles. So they generate turnovers at a very impressive clip. But when they're not generating turnovers, they're not getting a ton of stops. They've given up 35 plus points in the last 4 of their last 5 games. They've gotten run over on the ground a few times, and they've gotten torched through the air by a lot of Pac-12 quarterbacks. So USC really relies on generating stops and letting their offense kind of do a lot of the work and outscoring opponents.
All right, well, let's dig into a couple of the key players, a couple of defensive ends, a linebacker, a safety. Who we got?
Yeah, definitely. I think with USC, it's going to start with their defensive end, Tuipulotu. I practiced that one like 6 times. You couldn't even tell.
Happens all the time.
But he's the nation leader with 11.5 sacks. He's like top 5 in tackles for loss with 19.5. And I think a little bit notably, he's also broken up 3 passes at the line of scrimmage, which is something that Drew Pine has tended to struggle with throughout the year. So he's going to be a big X factor. And USC really lines him up at different spots. So you're going to see Fisher trying to block him. You're going to see Alt trying to block him. You might see him line up against Lugg or Corell or Patterson. He's really kind of he's listed as defensive end, but he will line up in different spots along the line to try to exploit different matchups. So wherever USC feels they might have an advantage to generate pressure, they will. They'll use that. So he's kind of the guy to look to up front. At the linebacker position, you have Shane Lee. He's got a couple interceptions on the year and is a good playmaker for that position room. And then in the secondary, like I said, USC leads the nation in interceptions. They've got a few guys to watch there. At safety, Kellen Bullock has 4 interceptions. At cornerback, Mekhi Blackman has 3 interceptions and 10 pass breakups. So a lot of playmakers with a lot of really gaudy statistics. And it's just a matter of whether Notre Dame can kind of avoid some of the negative plays and turnovers that USC thrives on.
Well, while we're talking about plays, your favorite part of the show, Aiden, put on your offensive coordinator hat. What should Tommy Rees do to be successful against USC?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things because you want Notre Dame to stick with their identity, and you want them to run the ball. There's something to be said about the teams that have absolutely torched USC through the air. And so you might want to see Notre Dame take a few more risks than normal in that regard. In those 4 games I mentioned, 4 of the last 5 games, they've given up 35 plus points. In those 4 games that they gave up 35 plus, USC gave up 377 passing yards per game. So I do think there's opportunity there. We've seen Pine have that success against BYU, against UNC. So if the Irish can kind of dial up some plays, if you see first half Navy, the first half Navy version of Pine, you're going to see them find success through the air. But what I really want to see Notre Dame do beyond that is really establish the run game like they have all year. USC has not really faced a team that really tries to run the ball more than they pass. And that, Notre Dame consistently tries to do that. If Notre Dame has their way, they'll run the ball on 65% of their plays. So really Notre Dame just going to establish their physicality and try to kind of really tire out a USC defense that isn't really used to having to physically dominate their opponent because they run that more spread style of offense and they just win these high scoring games.
I always say, how can you be tough when you live near palm trees? I don't get it. So I'm with you, Aiden. Let's run the ball. He is Aiden Thomas of The Observer. Say hi if you see him. And thank you, Aiden, for joining us as always.
Appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you. Have a good one.
And next, let's hear Marcus Freeman on what he thinks about this week's matchup.
It's obviously a great rivalry. A great football program, great history, tradition, and it'll be a great challenge for our team. As I told them, it's the focus on preparation, stay in the present, focus on preparation. Saturday will get here before we know it, but we have to continue to prepare. And that's what's the answer to the test. I don't know any other way. I don't. It isn't come up with trick plays. It isn't try to confuse them. It's prepare and continue to get better at the things we do really, really well, and continue to try to fix the things that we need to improve at. And so we're looking forward to the great challenge and great opportunity ahead of us.
All right, let's talk a little more specifically about the USC offense and what an offense they bring to the table. Let's welcome Mannion McGinley, who writes for The Observer. She joins us every week. And Mannion, you got to start with their quarterback, who is a Heisman candidate, probably the Heisman favorite, is he not?
Yeah. Caleb Williams is definitely the Heisman favorite at this point. I mean, after last weekend, he just has blown the conversation out of the water. He threw 32 of 43 of his attempts last weekend and for 470 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he did all of that after an interception, which for the average quarterback would have completely phased him and changed the way he played his game. But Williams is level-headed in every situation for 33 touchdowns this season. So he's really going to be a threat for the Irish this week.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see their offense against Notre Dame's defense because they like to throw the ball all over the place. And he's got a stable of very athletic receivers. How difficult will that challenge be?
Yeah. So he's been able to trust all of his receivers, but especially Taj Washington, Kyle Ford, and Jordan Addison. Repeatedly, these 3 have had more than 100-yard games. And outside of them, he's able to look everywhere. So he's really just going to be able to throw the ball anywhere. It's not at all a one-dimensional air game.
You ever wonder, Lincoln Riley coming over from OU, if Caleb Williams wins the Heisman, it'll be the 3rd quarterback Lincoln Riley has coached to win a Heisman, I think, in the last 6 years. What is it about Lincoln Riley's offenses why are they so good?
I think it's a lot of the mentality. I also think he just creates a space for the athletes to sort of lead. And he gets sort of everyone involved. I mean, even the run game has been a part of this. Austin Jones, and the rest of the running backs have been contributed just enough that it allows Williams to shine in the best way possible, and use his own skills in the best way.
Mannion, since you're a senior and you have some seniority there, do you get to attend this game in SoCal?
I do. I'll actually be working the game. I'll be in the press box in LA.
Have you been to a game there?
I've not before. I'm really excited.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool. It really is. Everything about the environment's cool except their fight song, which they play incessantly. And they I swear to God, they play it, I believe, after every single play, and it's going to drive you crazy. So just beware of that, Mannion, okay? And you have a happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for everything you've done for us this year.
Thank you so much, Vic. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
All right, that's Mannion McGinley. Let's hear from the head coach of the Trojans, Mr. Lincoln Riley.
They're good. I mean, they haven't given up 400 yards yet this year. We started doing college football. They've been good on third down. I think they're, they got good players at all levels. You can tell they've recruited there for, many years, and they've built a talent base, and that shows up, right? I mean, there's a lot of talented guys on that field, and then when the backups come in, there's still a lot of talented guys on that field, and they've done a nice job. They've had a really good defensive year. I don't see just a ton of weaknesses with the group. I mean, they've got guys who can rush the passer. They've played well in the secondary. They've intercepted balls. They've been good on third down. I mean, they're good defense. They're a challenging defense. The margins are thin with a group like that. You got to execute at a high level. And I've said that before when we played good groups, but that's what shows up. It's opportunities are always going to be there, but the windows are tougher. The opportunities are a little bit maybe not as easy sometimes, and it's never easy, but good teams and good defenses make it harder on you to make plays, and they do a nice job of that.
Pleased to be joined now by one of the notable Irish alum. There are so many Irish alum. Mike Golic Jr., who played and attended school at Notre Dame. He was on the 14-year plan over there, correct, Mike?
Yeah, stick around as long as you can is my advice to every single collegiate athlete, student, whoever. Life is going to be there for a good long time after. Stick around and enjoy that. But yeah, the Extendo college plan was a good one.
You're not going to remember this, but I used to work with your dad in Phoenix. We worked at the same sports radio station, and I did a show in the morning, and he did the show in the morning. I did a show right after his. So I think you were just a wee little boy at the time. Probably taller than I am right now, but that was a long time. Why did you decide to go with Junior instead of like Mike Golic II, which is sort of the popular thing to do now?
So I actually remember this came up a while ago, and I think the distinction actually ends up being if you have the same name, but it skips generations. So if my grandfather had been Michael Lewis Golic, dad had been something different, and then I had been Michael Lewis Golic, technically that's where the second jumps into this one. So unfortunately, I got saddled with Junior because dad is not creative enough to think outside the box, and he looked at his firstborn son and just said, we're going to do this again, and hit Control and V, I think, is copy.
They just couldn't think of names. They just basically said, we have no names. Let's just give them the same one we have, and let's make it work that way. Hey, when did you know, Mike? I'm always curious because there are so many sons of alum who go into the business. Of course, Collinsworth. When did you know you wanted to do this for a living?
High school, I think, is when it really settled in for me. I always tell people that for me growing up, dad was a broadcaster a lot more than he was a football player. I was a little kid. You want to talk about when I was in Arizona, when I was born in Jersey and he was playing with the Eagles his last few years in the league. I was, I think, 3 or 4 years old when he retired. So I don't have a ton of memories of him as a football player outside of the stories I was told and the pictures I saw. But I got to see Mike and Mike in the Morning grow to what it was. And I got to come with my dad when he would cover college football games and call bowl games when I was a kid. And so all of that combined with the fact that I was husky, liked to play football, and couldn't shut my mouth, which hasn't changed clearly. Thankfully, people just pay me for it now. But all those natural interests combined with what I saw him do. I wanted to be a lot like my dad in a lot of ways, and I saw that job as sort of an extension of him. And it's been awesome because it's been a way that he and I got to stay close when we were working together. And another one of those areas where I always have another set of eyes and ears from someone who's been one of the best at what this field has to offer for a long time.
What did you major in at Notre Dame?
I was film and television major. So oddly enough, now I do, my podcast 5 days a week with the folks at DraftKings, and my producer and the other voice on air is my buddy Brandon Newman. He was a D tackle at Notre Dame same years that I was there. And we were both film, theater, and television majors. And so Notre Dame doesn't have a comm degree, but this is as close as we got. And so he and I took all of our major classes together. We spent the better part of 3 years in all those classes on campus. And kind of set the foundation for where we're at now, which is really cool to look and see. I think as we go back on campus at Notre Dame now, the way Fighting Irish digital media has developed from the time that we were on campus to what it is now, having so much more brick and mortar stuff available to them in the new student center over attached to the stadium and just around the team in general.
It's developed into one of the nicest facilities in the country. When I was there, just so you know, Mike, we didn't have a major in film and television. We didn't have anything close. We didn't have the DeBartolo quad. It didn't exist. Yeah. The closest major, which I majored in, was American Studies. I wanted to be a sportscaster, so I said, okay, let's do American Studies. American, let's go that route. So congratulations for taking the film and television route. So when you graduated Notre Dame, for those that don't know your whole story, you played there, obviously. What was your next move upon graduation?
So after graduation, I tried to play pro ball for a little bit, like a lot of people will end up doing. I was fortunate my last year on campus. We went 12-0. We played in the BCS title game against Bama. And for me, I started the last 17 games of my career. And so with that timing, you know how this goes. The better the team does, the more often and more chance you're going to get as getting a look, even if you're a back end kind of guy here. The rising tide lifted all ships. And so I got a chance as an undrafted free agent. I did 3 NFL training camps in 3 years, 1 with the Steelers and 2 with the Saints. I did a quick stop in CFL training camp. I played in a fall experimental league in 2014. All that which to say is I exhausted a lot of options before football made it very clear it and I weren't going to have a future with me as a part of it playing professionally. So that was the 3 years after graduation. And then in fall of 2015, that is when I started doing weekend radio over at ESPN on a fantasy football radio show. And then just kind of slowly started to sink my hooks into different places around the building to make it hard for them to fire me for 7 years.
Good for you. All right. So you played USC when you were a baller there. How big is this game, and is it more meaningful than others?
Yeah, absolutely. I was having this conversation with someone the other day that's twofold. As I said, one, the Notre Dame SC game is such a different rivalry tenor than like the Notre Dame Michigan game, for example. That's a big rivalry. I had a lot more disdain for Michigan because they're closer. We drive over across the border into Niles all the time. You see the Michigan drivers on the road who can't drive worth a damn, and you get aggravated with them. So you have all that familiarity. It's a lot like Michigan's rivalry with Michigan State, where because you're so close all the time, there is a little bit more of that animosity. With Notre Dame and SC, I always thought that was a rivalry that, especially for me, I grew up a Notre Dame fan. Early 2000s were marked by USC. They were the team of my childhood, were those Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, USC teams that were winning Heismans and national titles. And that game against Notre Dame was such a big national game. And it was these two respected brands and programs. And you have all-timers on the resume like the Bush Push game in 2005 and all these things that stick out so much for everyone involved, that rivalry to me is a lot more impactful just because it came with all those ramifications more often than not. And so I didn't hate those guys, and I didn't have that animosity the way I did in the Michigan game. But I so vividly remember the night before we played Michigan in 12 when we were 11-0 on the way to a national championship appearance. It was a pseudo playing game. And I'm sitting with my dad in the hotel the night before the game, and I'm just like, I understand we have all of these other bigger ambitions right now than beating a USC team that started the season ranked number 1 that year, was unranked by the time we played them. But as I said to my dad, you come to Notre Dame to win this game. And you come to Notre Dame especially to have that opportunity to go to the Coliseum in Southern Cal, to get to flip the Trojan thing down on the whole crowd when you win that game, and to walk up that tunnel feeling good. And so, yeah, it is one of the most important games every year. It was one of my favorite to be a part of as a player. And I think, for so many Notre Dame fans and players, it's because it carries so much weight nationally, the way it will this week when Notre Dame and SC square off.
So which fight song do you hate the most, USC's or Michigan's?
See, this is where I always say I am a very unbiased party when it comes to assessing collegiate fight songs, because I truly believe Notre Dame has the best college fight song of all time. But I very firmly also believe that Hail to the Victor is the number 2 fight song in all of college football.
Stop it.
I think it's this is why I'm saying I can be objective. Even if I don't like Michigan and didn't like them a lot as a player, I think they have a great fight song and I rate it just behind ours. And so that's why I say people can take me seriously when I do the Homer thing and rate Notre Dame's fight song number 1. They don't play it as often as SC does. Going out to Southern Cal, you hear that dun, over and over. Learn a different song. Learn a different song at some point.
That's so funny you say that, because I school there in 1988, the year they won their last national championship. And I say the national championship was won in the final game of the regular season when Notre Dame went to SC and won that game. And that song was played all day, all night, and it was getting old. The best part of winning that game was walking off the field without that song being played. That was the best part of it, to be totally honest with you. Do you have, in broadcast rights, do you have any friends that attended SC? Do you have any guys that you talk to?
Not consistently. I got to know, and this is, again, the fun part about 2 programs that recruit so much nationally is we had so many guys from LA on our team. Dane Christ, who was a quarterback with me at Notre Dame when I was there, one of my roommates and still one of my closest friends, is from Southern California. So he had a bunch of friends that were on that team, guys like Wes Horton and some of the great defensive players that were at Southern Cal when we were in college. And we would see those guys sometimes in the off season when we were all in the same area and would get along great with them. They were awesome dudes. And so, there was plenty of overlap and crossover there. Not nearly as much now. I will say in the broadcast world, as we know, it is inundated by Syracuse grads and Northwestern grads and all that stuff. Notre Dame, we're starting to push more and more of our folks into that direction. I don't know if Southern Cal can say the same thing right now.
Bro, we can hold our own. Trust me, there are many more Notre Dame broadcasters than people think. And I know that for a fact. Mike, I really appreciate the time. The sweater vest is looking great, by the way. It is thick. It is comfortable. Perfect for the holidays.
It is. It's a Taylor Swift theme, too. Champagne Problem. So
nicely
a little
done.
Shout out to my fellow Taylor Swift fans who are probably all having a less than stellar Thanksgiving after the way the ticket lottery went.
Exactly right. Mike, take care, man. Thanks for your time, buddy.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Take care. That's Mike Golic Jr. We all know Mike Golic Sr. Mike Sr. for a long time, but the Golic family is true Notre Dame. All right, it's time for Vic's Picks, where you try to outduel me when it comes to picking Notre Dame games. It's pretty simple. Will Notre Dame win or lose this game? Will they cover the spread? How many yards of total offense and final score, just for fun? Last week, we had a winner. Yeah, congratulations, Johnny Ryan, Notre Dame seminarian, who outdueled me. He won, the only one to win Here Come the Irish sweater. Let's see who wins this week. Sweatshirt, I should say. Big difference. Let's start with the Rock the Athletics Fund and John Turner, class of 21. John, what's up, buddy?
Not much. How are you doing, Vic?
How's Omaha, Nebraska treating you?
It's God's country here. It's a beautiful sunny day in the mid-50s. We're just living life here.
I got 2 speeding tickets in Omaha, one going, one coming once, driving from Denver to South Bend. So I'm not very fond of Omaha, but how many games do you get back to?
We have season tickets. So the last couple of years, we've been fortunate enough to get back to all the home games.
Notre Dame SC. What's your greatest memory of that rivalry?
I think everybody's memory goes to an unfortunate conclusion of the Bush Push game, but over the last few years, we've kind of had their numbers, so we've been able to enjoy it since then. So we're hopeful for the same outcome this Saturday.
See, my greatest memory is 1988. They had Rodney Peete. We had Tony Rice, and we won that game on their turf, and it was awesome. On to the national championship. Okay, John, who do you like this week? Give us the numbers.
I love Notre Dame to win with a huge victory to close out the season. Of course, I think we're going to cover the spread. We'll have about 350 yards of offense, and I think we're going to win it 38-31.
Oh, 38. That will be what, 5 or 6 straight games of scoring over 35 points, which would be a Notre Dame record. The offense is unbelievable right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been terrific, and hopefully we'll get a few of those game-changing plays by the special teams as well.
John, thanks, buddy. Good luck to you, all right?
Appreciate it. Thanks, Vic.
Up next on Vic's Picks, it is a Notre Dame parent representing the Jesse Harper Council from Stamford, Connecticut. Let's welcome Lori Bell. I love your hat, Lori.
Thank you, Vic.
So, Notre Dame parent, kid or kids that attended the school?
Kids, Notre Dame swim team, and I still have a senior there.
Oh, nice. So you got a long lineage of Notre Damers. Why Notre Dame? Why they decide to go there?
I think they just love the school, and we came and we drank the Kool-Aid, and now we're just strong Notre Dame fans.
Very effective Kool-Aid, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And very quickly.
Yes, it is. Give us your picks for this week, Lori.
Okay, I had to do a lifeline because I really don't know what I'm doing because I pick on the mascot and the cheer and everything else. So it's 41-35, Notre Dame. Someone picked USC, and I said my son needs to still get his diploma, so I couldn't say USC. So we're going Notre Dame, 41-35. We're going to cover the spread, and the yards are 397.
397 with 41 points. Whoever helped you with the details there, they deserve the sweatshirt, not you, Lori, but I hope you win anyway.
Oh, come on. I got the 41-35. Come on.
That's a good point. Okay, I'll give it.
Going to make fun of me.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next, representing the O'Hara Society from Kingwood, Texas, Tim Leopold, who is a lifelong Notre Dame fan. I love that hat, dude. Where did you get that hat?
I got it at the bookstore.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. It's just
Thank
so
you.
easy, so simple, yet so effective. Why are you a lifelong Notre Dame fan? Give us your basis for that.
Well, I grew up in South Bend. You know, I was out in the stadium during the 1950s and Terry Brennan and all that. And then I went on and with my life and met my wife to be, and she was a MBA from Notre Dame. And so I thought, well, I'd get married to her and I would have legacy. So we had our family, and my daughter then attended undergrad and was
Beautiful.
a cheerleader. And then my son just finished in 19 and got his MBA from Notre Dame. So I'm kind of like, you know, the classic Rudy kind of guy, you know, that's following the team. And, you know, but I've got a little legacy going on with my family. So it's all been good.
Well, listen, you had 2 kids go through there, so you're more Notre Dame than I am at this point, Tim. Trust me. All right, who do you like this week? Give us your numbers.
Well, you know, whenever Notre Dame enters the stadium, goes on the field, I feel they're going to win every time. So we're going to win. And I think it's going to be a pretty good scoring game. Like you said, we've scored a lot of points in the last number of games. And so I say 41-38, you know, and then you know, I kind of feel like, you know, the offense to generate that type of offense, we're going to beat the spread. And I also feel like we're going to have roughly 400 yards to generate that type of scoring. So that's where I have it. We'll see. That's why they play the game, right?
I don't disagree. Last question. You have a ticket right behind you. What is that ticket right there?
That was I think that's the Alabama game, or that's a lithograph from the original game between Army and Notre Dame at Yankee Stadium. That both of those on my shoulders are the 2 lithographs from that game. But I've been blessed. I've been to all the national games. We playoff games. I went to the Ohio State Notre Dame home opener and was at the Clemson game. So I am definitely a blessed man. So
Tim, thanks for carrying the torch. Best of luck to you. Hope you win a sweatshirt. Thanks, my friend.
Thanks, Vic, for having me.
All right, take care. Up next, representing the Congregation of the Holy Cross, Father Eric Schimmel, class of 94. Father, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
How cold is campus this week?
Well, it was nice and chilly over the weekend. It was fun to have the snow for the Boston College game. It's starting to warm up a little bit, and it's amazing how when you're in the 20s for a little bit, the 40s can feel balmy.
No doubt about it. It was so cool to see the second half of that game, and all of a sudden the skies just opened up, and it could snow in a hurry there, can't it?
Truth. Very, very true.
Father, who do you like this week? Give us your numbers.
I say Notre Dame is going to win 38-31. I think we've scored 35 plus for 5 games in a row. USC has given up at least 35 4 out of the last 5 games. I think we can run it all over them. I have a secondary pick, Notre Dame 2-0 over North Carolina in women's soccer quarterfinals. That's going to start the evening. The football team is going to take care of business and finish the evening. We're going to have incredible celebrations.
I hope your numbers are correct. You deserve a sweatshirt. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Our last contestant on Vic's Picks, representing the Soren Society, class of 01 from Louisiana. Jamie, help me out, Jamie. Is it Sablich or Sablich?
You got it right the first time, Vic. Sablich.
Knew it.
Yeah.
What brings you down to Louisiana?
Well, I'm originally from Ocean Springs, Mississippi. That was where I was born and raised. And I met my wife after I graduated, who was from New Orleans, and it didn't take very long for us to migrate back to there.
A lot of Catholics in that area, aren't there? More than people think.
Correct. There's a lot of Catholics, a lot of Notre Dame graduates, a lot of Notre Dame fans. It's an only hour and a half from home, so it's been a great place for me to build a career and raise a family.
Where did you live on campus at Notre Dame?
I was in O'Neill Hall. So the second year after they built it, one of the very first dorms that had air conditioning, I was very fortunate, right next to the 9-hole golf course. So it was a great place to live.
I was there and never got air conditioning once, so don't even say it. All right, Jamie, what are your picks this week? Tell us what you got.
I think it's going to be a slugfest, a defensive battle. I think it's going to be close until the end when our offensive line and our running game kind of wears them down. I think it's going to be 21-17, and I think it's going to be a very, very close game until the end when they finally succumb to the talent of our offensive line.
Wow, you're the one person that doesn't have this as a score-a-thon, 21-17. Jamie, I like the way you bet. Thank you very much. Good luck to you.
All right, Vic, have a good day.
All right, here's what I think this week. Listen, we all had Notre Dame winning last week, but I don't think anybody had them shutting out BC. Notre Dame's offense is getting better by the week. They're getting more confident by the week. You could see the identity of this team, and the identity is pretty simple. We are going to stuff it right down your throat. So I have Notre Dame taking advantage of a suspect USC defense. Notre Dame's going to win this game, but it's not going to be one of these crazy high-scoring affairs. 28-24 with 458 yards of total offense. That's my pick. I hope you can beat me. If you don't win a sweatshirt. I'm sorry. Let's go now to one of the great rivalries of all time, Notre Dame SC. A look back at what makes this rivalry so good today.
There are 2 ingredients to a great football rivalry: history and hate.
The Irish journey to the Los Angeles Coliseum to meet Southern California.
Across half a continent, more than 1,500 miles apart, something profound brews in the soil. It might be best described as determined restlessness, a deep-seated distaste, a bloodthirst, to proclaim yourself and leave no questions. You see, on these 2 university campuses lay the breeding ground of the longest continuous intersectional rivalry in the country. Unarguably, the greatest intersectional rivalry in the college game, the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, the Trojans of Southern Cal. Make no mistake, when these teams play, it's for real.
It is a series that started back in 1926, but it has never been more dramatic
And it is today.
Notre Dame USC, one of the greatest rivalries in college football.
The Irish journey to the Los Angeles Coliseum to meet Southern California.
Tomorrow, we beat Southern Cal.
In another epic battle between these two famed rivals, maybe the most celebrated rivalry in college football.
Intercepted by Harrison Smith.
Look at that tackle by Jalen Smith.
Robinson hauls it in.
USC doesn't like us, and we don't really like them, and that's just how it's going to be forever.
The history goes back to the early 20th century, at a time many schools in the Midwest would not play this small Catholic school in Indiana. Notre Dame was forced to travel by train east to New York for the fateful victory over Army in 1913, then south that same year to defeat Texas at Austin. The Irish were claiming fame as a railroad team, and after star player turned coach Knute Rockne won Notre Dame's first national title with the Rose Bowl championship in 1924, it didn't take long to take his rambling squad west to California as a repeat destination.
The story that's often told is that it was the coaches' wives who first raised the notion of playing each other, that they met at an event and hit it off.
I know that Knute's wife was tired of not going on vacation. I think that's what it basically came down to. It
really didn't have anything to do with football. It was two ladies that, thought, hey, this would be a nice place for you to come out to and see the beauties of California.
Others say it was actually the two institutions saying, you know what, we got to try this because this would be really good for us and for college football.
However the story goes, the Irish handed the Trojans the first loss of the series in 1926. And except for a 3-year hiatus during World War II, Notre Dame and USC have brought it every year since.
The Notre Dame-USC rivalry is a national rivalry. It pits two regions of the country. Most of the other famous rivalries are within a conference. Michigan, Ohio State, they're bordering. Auburn, Alabama, they're in the same state.
USC Notre Dame was transformational in that it wasn't relegated to a geographical region.
It's not a proximity battle. It's not a state versus state battle. This is a university versus a university.
It's a rivalry born of two coaches with vision, deciding they ought to play each other at a time when traveling from South Bend, Indiana to Los Angeles and vice versa didn't make a lot of sense.
So many conferences are born of geography, or born of conference, or born of convenience. This isn't.
USC and Notre Dame are truly national rivalries. This series is good because the two teams are really, really good. All the quantifiable numbers about talent, Notre Dame and USC, they are 1 and 2 in College Football Hall of Famers, in Pro Football Hall of Famers.
All-Americans, draft picks, Heisman Trophy winners, famous moments. The number of years in which it has had national championship implications. It's not just the years in which one of the teams won the national championship. In some years, the outcome of the game kept one of the teams from winning the national championship.
When you look at sheer national brand power, as well as the pedigree of the players who have competed in the game, what they've gone on to achieve, not only within the sport, but beyond it, it's pretty hard to match Notre Dame USC.
Over the last century, no other pair of schools comes close to the combined records of these two programs. The Irish and the Trojans top virtually every chart of preeminent talent in the college game, and the NFL statistics don't disappoint. Elite teams don't play, they battle. That's why it hurts so much to not take the W every time, and why it feels so damn good to earn it. Take it from me. I was a teenage quarterback from California, and I got to lead my beloved Irish to 4 straight wins and begin a 13-year unbeaten streak against Southern Cal. My family couldn't be more proud, but no matter how much our numbers compare, we could not be more different.
When you think about the culture of, what is USC, it's definitely polar opposites of what you would think when you think University of Notre Dame.
I think it's kind of a clash of literally cultures.
Southern Cal's brand is about as far away from South Bend as you can get. It's glitz and glamour versus lake effect and gray skies.
SC is, Southern California, pretty boy, all that.
Hollywood. They get the guys that, athletic. They're going to like to run around. I mean, it's fun and sun. It's USC.
They weren't as physical as I was used to coming up against. The brand I represent is Lunch Pail.
Blue collar, smash mouth, in your face. We're just going to dominate you physically.
Notre Dame has a ton of pride in who they are. Strong, tough-minded.
It is absolutely sort of glamour versus grit.
The greatest records, the most impactful games, the longest duration, the most iconic of brands. It's hard to not say it's the greatest rivalry in the game.
USC doesn't like us, and we don't really like them. And that's just how it's going to be forever.
I think every time you play Southern Cal, you got to be concerned about the opponent.
When Notre Dame and Southern Cal compete, the national title implications are astounding. It was true from the very beginning, when the winner of the series decided a title for 5 straight years, and the 60s were no different. In 1964, when Ara Parseghian led the Irish to a 9-0 start in his first season in South Bend, the only obstacle to a championship lay at the Los Angeles Coliseum.
I get into that intangible thing again about the meaning, how meaningful that rivalry is, and it's because there are significant games. The '64 game was very significant.
We got up 17-0 in the first half, and then second half they came back on us, and then they got the momentum going, and then with 1 minute and 20 seconds to go in the game in our season, they scored a touchdown and beat us 20-17.
There weren't too many dry eyes. And, all us macho guys were pretty emotional about that, and that was in the waning moments of the game when we knew it got away from us.
The last page of the final chapter of 1964 to conclude its miraculous comeback story with a tragic...
We think that they stole that game from us in '64 for us to go 9-1. Now we, had a chance again to go back out there and make up for the '64 game, as well as establish who we are in '66.
2 years later, they returned to LA with another unbeaten team, and the results speak for themselves.
The '66 game was a function of putting a exclamation point on that '66 season.
I think we all felt that we could win, but we'd have to play awfully well. Having won that game the way we won it, one of the most unbelievable games in Notre Dame history. 51-0 against Southern Cal, playing a lot of second-team players.
The Irish stay unbeaten with a 51-0 rout of USC for that team's worst defeat in history.
In the 60s and 70s, already joined at the hip by the most inspiring intersectional college football relationship on the books, the Irish and Trojans created enough history for a century's worth of games. These weren't run-of-the-mill football squads. These were the best college football had to offer. In 2 decades, they amassed together 4 Heisman Trophy winners and 54 consensus All-Americans. And when these 2 powerhouses met, one always left disappointed.
A string of about, I think, 5 or 6 years where Southern Cal just had our number. They were taking no prisoners.
We had it in our hands and we just could not do it. And it's like haunted us most of our lives. That was the only thing standing between us and the holy grail for the national championship.
We wound up losing the football game. And that was, I think, the blemish that we had our senior year. We finished, I believe, 3rd in the nation that year. But it was the University of Southern California that sort of held us back in that situation.
In 1974, the returning champion Irish had their hopes crushed with a surprise Trojan comeback in California, and USC would go on to take the national title that year. But in '77, in South Bend, the Notre Dame-USC game will go down in the annals for a different reason, the way only a spirited rivalry could inspire.
You will be that driving force to motivate those coaches and those players to beat Southern Cal.
That was just the beginning of setting the crowd up to know that there's going to be something different when that team comes out of the tunnel to start the game tomorrow.
Divine was all talking about green and everybody wearing green,
no big deal because hey, it's the Irish, what the heck. We didn't think anything about it when we were getting dressed.
The unexpected is commonplace in the colorful Notre Dame Southern Cal series, and Dan Devine might well be remembered for masterminding the cagiest plot of them all.
We warmed up like normal and you went back through the tunnel, and I was towards the end, and you could hear a commotion in the locker room. And everybody's going, what's going on? So what's happening? Something's going on in the locker room. No one could figure it out.
So when Dan Devine first gets here, I said, why don't you wear green jerseys against Southern Cal? Let the team go out in the field and warm up in their blue. While they're out there on the field, pregame, you have the student managers put those green jerseys in every locker upstairs in the locker room. When those kids come upstairs, when they see those green jerseys, they're going to be so emotional.
The whole locker room erupted. You thought we had won the game, and we came out, it just electrified the crowd because they didn't know it either.
Notre Dame and Southern Cal, the most spectacular of all the intersectional series in the realm of collegiate football.
It was over when Southern Cal saw them coming out of the tunnel in the green jerseys and John Robinson. It was in his head. This is bigger than big. That intensity never let up for 4 quarters.
Montana angles out to the left side. Takes a look, runs the football to McAfee. Touchdown! Touchdown to McAfee! Notre Dame has defeated Southern Cal.
The Irish went on to win their 10th consensus national title that year. I was a happy 12-year-old. My dad and I were thrilled. The next decade was around the corner, and the rivalry was about to get a whole lot sweeter.
USC doesn't like us, and we don't really like them, and that's just how it's going to be forever.
First of all, we're heading into the final week and a half of
we got the greatest receivers I've ever seen, bar none.
At the end of my junior season, Lou Holtz came to South Bend to lead a new era in Notre Dame football. His impact was clear in the locker room, and his impact against our opponents would quickly surface.
It was bizarre because Coach Faust was literally saying goodbye to the team. And they introduced Coach Holtz, and he came down and said, when I'm speaking, you sit up in your chair, you look me in the eye, you listen to what I have to say. He set the tone literally from the first 20 seconds that he spoke to the team.
We knew right away that it was a different set of rules that we were going to be playing by.
He always tried to kind of keep things down in the beginning of the week and kind of build it up. But with USC especially, you could see there was a difference. There was a different vibe on campus. There's a different vibe at practice.
I'll never forget my freshman year getting ready for the USC game. Coach Holtz made us take a test.
Yeah, that was the only way you got to travel. You had to pass the test.
So it was significant where we had to know the history, how it started. And so you hear about the history of it, and so it becomes more than just a game.
You credit Coach Holtz with that because you do things like that, and it makes the players more knowledgeable about who they're dealing with and our responsibility to the tradition and to the rivalry by securing another Notre Dame victory. All practice, every day. He's blaring the USC fight song. That's all you hear is that stupid fight song. It's a nightmare. We went out to compete, so we didn't have to hear that fight song again.
It's the Notre Dame Fighting Irish versus the USC Trojans.
Lou's first game against Southern Cal was the last game of my college career. We had lost 6 games going into Los Angeles, but we knew the way we played that afternoon would set the tone for this program and make a statement for this rivalry.
USC was pretty good, and nobody thought we can beat them. We're down. Of course, everybody thought the game was over. If Notre Dame fans thought to leave the stadium and everything.
When a comeback starts, Tim Brown, who goes on the next year to win the Heisman Trophy, returns a punt 56 yards, and as time runs out, John Carney kicks a field goal.
It'll be a 19-yard field goal. It is up and it is good. The Irish have won it, 38-37.
We just kept fighting, and that is directly attributed to him.
Lou made a comment after that season. He said, we may have lost 6 games this year. He goes, but I guarantee you we're not worse than 6 or 7 teams in the country. And that said a lot to us. The next couple years, Lou got that philosophy and that mentality instilled in those players, and it paid off, and it showed itself for a long time after that.
The cornerstone was laid at the end of the 1986 season with the victory at USC, and the foundation is set. The foundation for the 1988 national championship.
Southern California will receive the kickoff.
As had become the pattern, the unbeaten Notre Dame team of 1988 came to Los Angeles to close out the season and prove to the nation who the best team in the country was.
And there's not a bigger game out there than Notre Dame USC, number 1, number 2. Winner of that game goes for the national championship.
My senior year, we're getting our butts handed to us in the first half.
They were a big team. They were a well-coached team.
We were 10-0. They were 10-0. The whole suspends 2 key players. There's some question, well, there's no way they're going to beat USC.
The team came together and said, look, these guys are gone. The next guy up, it's got to pick up the slack. You got to jump higher. You got to run faster.
And we're walking through the tunnel, and we get to the tunnel, and the USC players and coaches are singing our fight song and kind of mocking us. And that woke us up, and that was a bad idea.
This has been a game of turnovers and defense. Well, this figures to be a testing series now for a very sore Rodney Peete. And the Irish are executing beautifully. And Green's got a touchdown. Emmanuel over the top. Knocked him back. Peete swings it out. He's wrestled down at the 10.
Lou's team did not need more motivation. Beating Southern Cal that day would propel the Irish to their 11th consensus national title.
So it has gone on and on. This game has always been a measuring stick for the coaches on both sides. Even when this game doesn't have national championship implications for both teams, more often than not, it has it for one. And certainly in 1995 it did. USC came in undefeated.
They were ranked 5th in the country. They were the hotshots from USC. The weather forecast that day was a little overcast, a little drizzly, it was cold. So it was a perfect day for Notre Dame and Notre Dame football.
You can point to those moments where you say, throw out the record book because it's going to be on this game.
On redemption of the tailback, Gibson on the ground. Has the room, 40s, 35, nice inside.
The crowd was into it. We got off to a great start, just continued to push and push and push.
And I do remember this being an incredibly physical, hard-hitting game. Notre Dame linebacker Kennan Tatum. USC is close to scoring. They're down in the goal line. He leaps over the defensive line.
2nd and goal, 4-yard line. Washington hit fumble. The ball is loose. Notre Dame says they have it.
He jumped over the top of a blocker and just collided. It was a fumble.
That really stops the drive and turns the game around.
It was just an all-around thorough victory for us that day.
You talk about home field advantage, they're focused, but they feed on that energy, and certainly Notre Dame fed on the energy to USC. And Notre Dame football rises to one of its highest levels ever in terms of talent and skill, and USC is struggling a bit at this time. And it got to the point during that period of time where Notre Dame players, Notre Dame fans, they expected to beat USC. Even when they fell behind, they thought deep in their hearts that by the end of the game they were going to come out on top. It was a remarkable period of time for this series for Notre Dame.
With the Irish victory that day, we had completed a streak of 13 unbeaten games against USC and our 39th win in the series. A great time to be Irish.
USC doesn't like us, and we don't really like them, and that's just how it's going to be forever.
The Notre Dame-USC rivalry speaks for itself. History, tradition, characters, high-stakes games, controversy, heartbreak, glory. No two schools have traveled so far. Over 280,000 miles collectively to play each other. But to these two schools, it's worth every mile.
And a happy bunch on the road. They snap an 8-game losing skid.
Rivalries that have this history and this significance never lose their steam.
And anytime you have a great rivalry, there have been great games. And when those are the case, the rivalries tend to keep going. When things become too one-sided or the games lose their flair, that's when rivalries tend to die down. But you've seen over the last however many years that those great games, great matchups continue to happen.
This rivalry, I just can't see it ever diminishing. No matter how up or down either team is, that's the one game that matters. You don't remember half the games you play against other teams, but you remember that win or that loss when you played USC because of the tradition and the history of the game, of the programs,
of the players that came before you, of the players that come after you.
This is two places which are very far-flung, which seem to have almost directly opposing cultures, at least from the outside looking in. That's why I think the fact that this rivalry has endured and it's been a priority and a crucial game for both teams and both programs, they're so deeply invested in its outcome, that's what makes it a rivalry to cherish.
Leonard scores his second effort, and Southern California is going to win this game.
First time I was able to come back to campus since I played was the Bush Push. And I was on the sideline for that game, and we had all rushed the field, thinking it was over. They cleared us back off, and then obviously we know the end result. At that moment, I would say that was an aha moment that just probably compounded a bunch of just moments that led up to that one that was like, yeah, I really don't like these guys.
It was always personal. And I think it's personal on that. That's what makes rivalries. That's why college football is so great. The fans feel that too. The students feel that. And the football players, we get to live it out. And that's what it's all about. And that's why we're so blessed to be able to do what we did.
They say it's not good to hold hatred in your heart, but it's Southern Cal. This isn't some friendly match on the turf. This is where champions are decided and legends are born. USC. That was a four-letter word in my house growing up. So for Dad, Notre Dame football, and the Irish faithful, this one is special, and it always will be.
All right, here we go, Rhino. The regular season finale. And Notre Dame can really make a mark going into the postseason. What are the keys to victory this weekend?
Number one, take care of the football. Turnovers were a huge problem against UCLA. When USC faced them, USC benefited greatly from it. So you limit the turnovers, run the football to keep Caleb Williams and that fantastic offense off the field. And then three, be more physical than the other team. I mean, the physicality of the Irish is something that a lot of people have overlooked. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's the run game. It's also Benjamin Morrison pressing guys as a cornerback to disrupt them. It's Jordan Botello. It's Isaiah Foskey powering himself through alignment to get to be the leading sack person in the history of Notre Dame defensively. So take care of the turnovers, run the ball, and be physical. The Irish win, Vic.
I totally agree with you on just that run game, because if they can dominate long drives and keep their offense off the field, they're going to get frustrated. When they get frustrated, that's when an offense makes mistakes, correct?
Absolutely, 100%. And especially if you end those drives with touchdowns, just like they did last week. I mean, look at that response. They had 12 yards in the second half against Navy. And then the first punt of the game was towards the end of the third quarter. It might even been in the fourth quarter, I believe. So they had a great experience of running those long sustained drives you're talking about, Vic. And if they can do it against Southern Cal, it's going to be big.
All right, listen, you played in the Bush Push game, so you're probably the wrong person to ask. But of all your hated rivals, who is your most hated in college football?
I can't stand USC. The Bush Push game was part of it. And I'll tell you something else, Vic. I went to USC as a junior, I believe, senior in high school. And when they beat Notre Dame, the only thing we did was drive around looking for some taco stand. These guys don't even know how to have fun. I don't like them. The colors make me want to throw up. It's almost Thanksgiving. I'm trying to treat my stomach without looking at that. But after Thursday, I'll start looking at the USC colors because they are the worst in college football. But it's funny, Vic, USC and Notre Dame guys, they're the best of friends in the NFL because of this rivalry.
Yes. Isn't that crazy? You can sports hate. Like, there's a difference between hatred and sports hatred. I always joke about this on my radio show. Sports hatred is fake. It's just, you just don't like the game. You don't like who they represent in a game. But you're right. Outside of the helmet and outside of the field, some of those SC guys are the nicest dudes around.
Brian Cushing, when I came to the Houston Texans, I walked in the locker room and he goes, "We just got dumber, boys." But he stood up and he walked over and said, "Great to see you, Ryan." You know, I mean, and that's kind of, and that's why you can have that sports hate, right? You can tie your loyalties and still like the person, but they got to make it there first. But it's something that's amazing that the origin of it, you know, some say it was because the Notre Dame coach's wife wanted to go shopping on Rodeo Drive. We don't know, but
it's a cool game either way. And on Thursday, as a team, you fly together after having Thanksgiving, and you get 2 nights at the Ritz. So it's your first introduction to wealth as well if you're a young player.
Ryan, have a great weekend. Have a great Thanksgiving, and have a great game.
Happy Thanksgiving, Vic. See you soon. Go Irish.
All right, buddy. We leave all of you now with the Notre Dame marching band. See you next week.
United States of America.